Greetings and welcome to my very belated July TBR. Before we begin, I would like to give a quick update on how June went. I haven't even begun to edit the vlog that I was recording for the month of June. So the goal was to read 15 books and to read more than 5,000 pages. I only managed to read 14 books, but I did clear the 5,000 page marker, so I'm really happy with that. It is now today the 8th of July. I haven't read a single page so far this month, and I have a huge stack of books that are due back to the library on the 25th of July, and I would like to be able to return as many of those as possible. So this is a very optimistic TBR, bearing in mind we are almost a third of the way through the month. So let's get straight into it. To begin with, I'm just going to quickly do a brief update on books that I'm currently reading that I'm hoping to prioritise first, get those out of the way. Unfortunately, none of these are borrowed books, these are all owned books. So first of all, we have Vicious by V.E. Schwab. At the moment, I am on page 203 of 343, so not too far to go. I'm really loving this so far. It is quite different to what I had expected, but one of my favourite tropes is best friends to enemies, and we have this in abundance. It is darker than I was expecting, and I was expecting it to be good versus evil, but it's bad versus worse, which is actually quite a refreshing trope, so really enjoying it so far, hoping to finish this today. Next on the list, I'm rereading the Harry Potter series. I normally read them every summer just out of nostalgia, they're easy reads. So at the moment I'm on page 81, so barely into it at all, got quite a long way to go. At the moment I've been listening to the audiobook by Stephen Fry. I would listen to that man read anything, it's just so soothing. I probably will physically read some of it, but I will probably wait until they've actually got back to the school. This one and book 5 in particular, like there's many pages before they actually get to the school, so I will probably listen to those, and then the bits that I find a bit tiresome I will probably listen to while I'm doing other things. But yeah, book number 2. And then shamefully, I picked up Gods of Jade and Shadow and A Declaration for the Rights of Magicians, both of these in April. Potentially controversial opinion, I'm not loving Gods of Jade and Shadow as much as I wanted to, and I have been procrastinating on finishing it. At the moment I'm on page 145, and this copy is 336 pages, so I'm about halfway through, and I'm sure I am going to enjoy it. It's just a bit slower paced than I had anticipated. I've liked everything that I've read by the author before, so I didn't mention, but it's by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I've got another book of hers in my July TBR, so I really enjoyed the stuff of hers that I have, but this one I think perhaps I went into it with the wrong expectation. But yeah, I would really love to get this finished, hopefully over this coming weekend. Because yeah, as I say, it has been a while, and if I leave it too much longer I'm going to have to start over again, and I don't really want to have to do that. So next one on the list. And then finally, as mentioned, A Declaration for the Rights of Magicians. This one's by H.G. Parry. Again, I am really loving this book, but the font is quite small, the margins aren't particularly large, and it has been a bit of a slog. I'm on page 281. This copy is 534 pages, so again I'm about halfway through. With this one, it is just how slow paced it is. So normally I can read just under 100 pages an hour. With this, it feels like it's taking me about an hour to read 30 pages. And currently I am 5 books behind schedule on my Goodreads reading challenge, so I've been trying to prioritise quicker reads. That again, a bit like with Gods and Jade of Shadow, if I just don't get on and finish it, I'm going to have to start over, which I really don't want to have to do because I'm about 15 hours into this at this point. So I think maybe I might take this to work with me next week and have it as my lunchtime read, so I'm kind of just chipping away at it. yeah, so enjoying it, but really need to finish it. So that's it for physical currently readings. I am reading a bit of a trashy romance at the moment on my Kindle. It's just on Kindle Unlimited. I'm umming and ahhing about whether or not to keep Kindle Unlimited. I might cancel the subscription. So at the moment I'm trying to prioritise the books that I have borrowed that I haven't read. I can't remember the name of the book. I think it's like To Love a Prince or something. I'll put it up on screen. So I would like to get that finished. I'm also halfway through The Poppy War. I was buddy reading it with a friend and I fell behind and then she finished it very quickly, and I know that in an upcoming chapter it's gonna be bad and the souls are just not ready for it. And at the moment I kind of feel that I'm in between scenes, so I don't really want to spoil anything, but it's not what I had expected. I don't want to say anything that's is going to spoil it, but there was quite a peak of action, and now I sort of feel like there's a lot of words and not much happening, and I don't really know where it's going because, as I say, what's happened is not what I had expected. I thought that where we were now was going to be in like book 2. So, but again, it's another one of those, I've been reading it for a while, haven't picked it up for a while, and if I don't finish it soon, I'm going to have to start over. And as I say, I think I'm about halfway through that as well, so I really need to prioritise that. I have been having some moderate success with books that I'm struggling with if I pair audio and reading. So I do have the first one on Audible, so I might do the two together just to try and get out of like this slow-paced action gap where I find myself, and then perhaps once it's picked up again I'll be fine just to listen to it on audio. But yeah, so that's where we are on those. In order to break this down, the next section I am going to talk about books I'd like to read this month is non-fiction. The first non-fiction book I would like to read is Woman in the Picture, and then the tagline is Women, Art and the Power of Looking. This is by Catherine McCormack. I had this on pre-order from Amazon, which I treated myself to for my birthday last year and still haven't read it yet. So this is basically about how women's identity has been limited by archetypes, and how we're sexualized in imagery, and it's something that I have many opinions about. I'm very passionate about art, and it's something that I feel doesn't get enough attention, not nearly enough attention. So I was really excited. As I say, had this on pre-order, and then, as always around my birthday time, I'm suddenly inundated with new books, can't decide what to read next, so I read none of them and pick up something I've read before. So as I say, because I treated myself to this for my birthday, I would really like to read it before my next birthday, which is just around the corner. So yes. The next book, entertainingly, I also bought for myself for my birthday. I ended up on my actual birthday going into an independent bookshop, had a look around, was so self-controlled because I'd already bought myself a book for my birthday, and then as I left, and I was stood outside the shop trying to figure out where I had lost my parents, and as I was stood in front of the shop trying to figure out where they had gone, I looked at the window display and then immediately had to go back in. It was the only copy they had, so they gave me the display copy, and it is called From Spare to Wardrobe. So it's basically, the tagline for this is Travels in Narnia with My 9-year-old Self. This is by Catherine Langeresh, and it's basically reconsidering the Narnia series through a child's lens and also an adult's lens. Narnia is one of my favourite series of all times. It's one of my absolute go-tos. Like, the movie is like one of my comforts when I'm not feeling very well. And now with Disney Plus, I'm able to watch Prince Caspian and Voyage of the Dawn Treader. And even there's a special place in my heart for the BBC version from the late 80s, which had adults in suits. So like Mr. Beaver is like 6.5 feet tall and towers over the children, and there is something about it. I don't know if I'd find it so entertaining if I watched it for the first time now, but me and my childhood best friend just watched it on repeat continuously, and I absolutely adore it. So I was quite excited to see this again, really eager to read it straight away. Somehow I find myself almost a year later and I haven't read it. I think this is going to be one that I absolutely plough through. It's probably going to be like a 1 or 2 sittings kind of a read, but I'm really excited about it. And then it's got a quote at the bottom from Neil Gaiman, who's one of my favourite authors. And it says, points out moments we missed and connections we hadn't made. So I feel like I'm going to want to reread the series after reading this, because I feel like it's just gonna shed some new light on an old favourite, which is always really exciting. Next we have Hamilton and Me, An Actor's Journey by July Tbr. A friend got me this for my birthday last year. Again, was super excited to read it. It went into the pile of non-fiction and I somehow still haven't read it yet. So July Tbr played Aaron Burr in the production of Hamilton at the West End, and I absolutely adore Hamilton, and I'm just really excited to read something from the perspective of someone that was involved in the English production. So yes, I'm very excited to get to this. Again, I think it's going to be one of those books that is consumed with very little put down in between, which, as I say, 5 books behind schedule, these are exactly the kinds of reads that I need right now. So yeah, very excited about that. Next we have John Green and the Anthropocene reviewed. Had this on pre-order. There was a problem with the pre-order, so it got cancelled right at the last second. So with the pandemic being really bad on the run up to Christmas last year, I drove all the way into town to pick it up from Waterstones, read half of the first page, put it down, haven't picked it up again. So another one that I would really like to get to. This one I think I'm probably going to read slower, so it seems like it's a series of essays, so I thought I might just kind of do like an essay a day. As much as I love John Green, I feel like if I read it all too close together, I'm kind of not really going to have any takeaways. Like each essay is kind of going to wipe out the one that I read before, and I kind of want to read it a bit slower and kind of absorb what he's saying. So I think this might be a pick up, put down throughout the month of July. But yeah, really excited to get to. The next one that we have is a book that I've borrowed from a friend that I'm hopefully seeing soon, and I haven't started this yet. I borrowed it from her before Christmas, and I would really like to be able to give it back to her when I see her. So it's called Quietly Visible, Leading with Influence and Impact as an Introvert, and I find in professional environments it really difficult to give my opinion in a measured way. So I either come across as very non-committed to my opinion or slightly over-committed to my opinion. There's nothing in between. I was complaining about this to a friend, and she said that she thought that I would find this very useful, and she lent it to me, and she hadn't even read it yet, so I really feel like I must return it to her, and soon. The font is quite large, and the margins are a decent size, so I think this will be a moderately quick read. But again, because I'm trying to personally develop from it, I don't want to go through it too quickly. I kind of want to make sure that I am getting the lessons. So again, I think this might be a bit of a chip away every day sort of a book. So I might I've got some like mini bookmarks, so I might mark out each of the chapters and try and just read a chapter a day and sort of make notes as I'm going through it. So I don't think I mentioned the author, but this one is by Carol Stewart. And then last, but certainly not least, we have a borrowed library book. So this is David and Goliath by Malcolm Gladwell. Malcolm Gladwell is one of my favourite non-fiction authors. I just find his thought process very refreshing, and I like the kind of the way that he's able to tell a story even when it's non-fiction. And yeah, I've loved everything of his that I've read, and I'm trying not to buy any more books, any more audiobooks, and try and work through things that I've already got. So I was really excited to see this in the library. I wasn't looking for it. Someone had left it in the coding section, but I'm not going to complain. I'm very excited to get to this. So next, let's talk about series that I'm hoping to finish in July. Series I would like to finish. So I read Nine Fox Gambit, I believe in the month of May, and then I got from the library Raven Stratagem, which is book 2, and Revenant Gun, which is book 3. These are by Yoon Ha Lee. I really enjoyed Nine Fox Gambit. It was so different to any sci-fi that I'd ever read, and I love that kind of no explanations really are given to a lot of like the world building and the backstory, like you just hit the ground running, and I just thought it was such a refreshing sci-fi story. The ending to me was completely unexpected. I was really rather thrown, and then finished it being like, no, you can't leave me here. What happens next? So yeah, managed to call both of these out. I think one was from like Fareham and one was from Basingstoke, so I had to pay to get these called into the local library. These are due back at the end of July, so I really would like to have both of these read to be able to return them when they're due back. Next we have Ruin and Rising by Lee Bardugo. So I finished Siege and Storm again, I think it was in May, and I would really like to get this finished. I've been dragging the series out for such a long time, but as soon as this is done I can move on to reread Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, and I'm really excited to see the show on Netflix. So yeah, really keen to get to this. Possibly controversial opinion, I did not utterly love Six of Crows the first time I read it. Hear me out before you click away. It had come to me very overhyped, so sort of trying to match like the expectation that had been set, but also it was sold to me as an elaborate heist, and I'm not suggesting that it's not an elaborate heist, but I expect my elaborate heists to be plot driven, and in this case it was very character driven. Of course you do get that payoff, but I spent about 2/3 of the book being like, I was told this was a heist, I see nothing heist-like happening. So having now re-leveled expectations, I am expecting to enjoy it a lot more the second time around. I absolutely adored Crooked Kingdom, and I felt like the payoff was worth the character build-up. So it's not that I dislike Six of Crows, it was just I went in with expectations that just didn't align with the book that I was reading. Next we have a series that again is very beloved, and I'm not sure I'm on the train yet. So last year I read City of Brass, so I bought Kingdom of Copper at the same time that I bought City of Brass, and then I called Empire of Gold from the library, so again I had to pay to have this brought to my local library. And I have not advanced with either. I do have the audiobooks for both. I know that it is a very beloved series by a lot of people, and I really wanted to love it. But again, for me, the pacing was a bit too slow, that there wasn't a huge amount of plot, but also I didn't feel like there was a huge amount of character development either, so it was very character based, but I didn't feel like I saw the characters grow. Also, with 2 of the 3 main characters, they're both very intelligent. One is more bookish intelligent, the other one is very street savvy. The one that's street savvy has been completely taken out of her environment and put into a new environment, and she keeps telling us, the reader, like how savvy she is and like how she knows everyone, and like, you know, she's a hustler, and then just does really dumb things. Meanwhile the other character, who's really bookishly smart, is also really dumb a lot of the time, and I have a feeling that I'm meant to be leaning into a love triangle, and like, it's 2022, like I'm so past love triangles at this point. However, I'm not prepared to write off the series. The first one I didn't love, but that's okay, and I've heard good but brutal things about the second and third book, so I'm really keen to get to these close together. I've heard, but I'm not quite sure, that apparently once you finish book 2, book 3 must follow quickly if you have the emotional capacity for it. We shall see, but would love to get to both of these this month. I don't think I mentioned it, but the author is S.A. Chakraborty. Then finally we have a duology. I'm now not sure, I believe this is the first book, so this is The Beautiful by Renee Ade. I'm probably mispronouncing that, apologies if I did. And I also have the sequel, which is called The Damned. So this is set in New Orleans. The second one, I believe, is set in Paris. And it just sounds like a bit of a wild ride. I'm hoping that they're going to be a relatively quick read. Neither of them are particularly long, around 400 pages each, and they've come recommended by Saber Tahir, so I think they are both going to be very good, and I'm quite excited to see the adventure. I would like to say we're nearly there, but I feel like we're about halfway, so bear with me, I'll try and pick up the pace a little bit. The next collection of books I have, they are all borrowed, hoping all to be able to return them. There's a bit of a mixture of genres here, some of them are standalone, some of them are part of a series, so I will just whip through them. So the first one we have is The Psalm for the Wild by Becky Chambers. I've adored everything I've read by her so far. This is the first book in a series. It is a novella. I read earlier this year If Taught to Be Fortunate by her and I absolutely adored it, so I'm feeling really excited for this one. It says between the title and her name, a monk and robot book, so not really sure what to expect here, but really excited. I adore the cover, and as I understand, the second book is coming out very shortly. This was borrowed from a friend, and I would really like to get it back to her before the second one comes out, because I feel like she would probably want to reread it before the second one. So yeah, I think it's going to be a really quick read, so I'll probably get this one fairly early on, just so that I feel like I'm making progress towards being back on track. Next we have Phoenix Extravagant. This is also by Yoon Ha Lee, so the same author as the Nine Fox Gambit series. This just has the most brilliant cover, so I picked it up because of the cover before I saw the name of the author. This one, the tagline just says Dragons, Art and Revolution. I honestly don't know more what else I could tell you. How does this not sound awesome? So very excited to get to this. It sounds like it's going to be a wild adventure. Next we have What Abigail Did That Summer by Ben Aranovich. This is a novella for the Rivers of London series. The newest book just came out. I've completely forgotten what it's called. I'll pop it up on screen. I am behind in the series. The last book that I read, which was called, I believe, The Hanging Tree, it's the first one in the series that I honestly haven't loved. It took me 3 attempts to finally finish it, but I am quite keen to continue on with the rest of the series. This I did start last year. I got to page 48 out of 197. So yeah, about a third of the way through. I found the pacing a little bit slow, but there are foxes in it. You can see that one on the cover, so it's a fox whisperer. So I feel like I kind of haven't really given it a fair chance yet. It is quite different to the other books in the series, because this one is being told by, I don't know, I think she's either just about to become a teenager or is an early teenager. Meanwhile, the rest of the series is written by a police constable. I don't want to spoil it for anyone that hasn't started it, but it's urban fantasy. The series is great. I really recommend it. So next we have Internment by Samira Ahmed. I picked this up to read for the Asian Readathon, but got utterly carried away in the library and just didn't have time to read all of them. But I cannot return this until I've read it. It's due back at the end of the month, so I would really like to get to this as soon as I possibly can. It sounds like it's going to be quite a challenging read, but I think that it's something that really should be read. Next we have The Astonishing Colour of After by Emily X.R. Pan. I don't know too much more about it. John Green called it a very special book. Again, this was one that I picked up for the Asian Readathon and just didn't get to. So again, due back at the end of the month, and I would really like to have read it before I have to return it. I've also got another book by Samira Ahmed. This is Mad, Bad and Dangerous to Know. Again, I got this for the Asian Readathon. This I had to call from Basingstoke Library, so again it's one that I had to pay to have brought to my local library. As a principle of the matter, I must read it before I return it because I had to pay for it. This is set in Paris, and it's the story of 2 women separated by 2 centuries, I believe. But look how beautiful the cover is. So it's quite a short book. I think it shouldn't take me too long to get through it. It's just over 300 pages, but I'm really excited to get to this. I've heard some really great things. So the second to last book we have is The Luck of the Titanic by Stacey Lee. One of my eternal interests is the story of the Titanic. I live in the south of England, so although the Titanic was built in Belfast and was registered to Liverpool, the crew was primarily local to where I am, and the city was very heavily impacted by the sinking of the Titanic, so it's something that I'm very passionate about, and something that I'm always looking to learn more about. It was something that I didn't know and really felt that I should have done. There were Chinese passengers aboard the Titanic that survived the sinking. I didn't know until very recently that at the time Chinese people were not welcome in the United States at the time. So when they arrived at New York having survived the sinking, they were immediately turned away, and the newspapers at the time told all sorts of lies about the survivors, and just the racism is absolutely mind-boggling. It is offensive in the extreme and is something that I think should be more widely discussed. So this book is about a Chinese passenger on the Titanic, and she basically stows away because she doesn't realise until she tries to board the ship. To be honest, I don't know more than that. I've only got what is written on the back of the book. Again, I think it's going to be quite a difficult read, both because of the Titanic topic, but also the inherent racism. But again, it's something that I feel that should be spoken about a lot more widely, so I'm really interested to see what Stacey Lee has written about. And then last but not least, we have A Glow of Fallen Stars by Katie Ling. This is a sci-fi that seems like it's a bit of a thriller as well. Again, beautiful cover. One that I also got for the Asian Readathon and just did not manage to get to, but I'm still really keen to read them before I have to return them to the library. Like some of the others, this one has quite big text, medium-sized margins, and I feel like it's going to be quite a quick read. It's just over 350 pages, so I don't think it will take me too long to get through. Okay. So last but certainly not least, is in the month of July there is Summerween, and I am a Halloween groupie. It's always Halloween in my head, and any opportunity to read spooky or creepy books, I am all over it. So I will of course link the announcement video in the description box below. The dates for the Summerween Readathon is the 15th to the 21st of July. My birthday falls within that time frame, so I do have some time off from work, so it's always very exciting to cram a few extra books in that are spooky themed. So there are 5 prompts. I'm just moving my notes so that I can actually tell you what they are. So we have the first prompt is to read a book in the dark or at night. The second prompt is to read a book with Halloween colours on the cover. The third is to read a book with haunt in the title. The fourth prompt is to read a slasher, and the fifth prompt is to make or bake a spooky fall themed treat. So I have a selection of books here. As always, my creep factor threshold is so much lower than I think it is, and I do need to try and keep hold of the mythical sleep. So I don't want to read anything that is too spooky. So I have a few options for each prompt. I don't think I'm going to be able to read all of these on top of the books that I've already mentioned. So the Summerween Readathon starts a week today and runs for a week, which means that I only have 2 weeks to read all of the other books I've mentioned. Did I say that this was very optimistic? So anyway, so the books that I have picked. So for read a book in the dark or read a book at night, really any of these will do. For the second prompt, I've picked up 3 books. So I have Mayday by Josie Jeffrey. This has been lent to me by a friend, and she said that she thought I would really love it. So it's about a vampire private detective, and honestly, she didn't need to tell me anything else. I am in, I am sold. So I'm quite keen to get to this. She also lent me a very tiny novella by the same author to read alongside it. So we have those. I also picked up Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. So this has a very, very orange cover. So again, this was lent to me by my friend. She's coming home in a couple of weeks, so I would really love to be able to return this to her because I've had it for 2 years. So I really do need to get to this. And then last but not least, I've made such a mess, I'm not sure what I've already held up now. We have Velvet Was the Night, which is the other book that I mentioned, also by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. So this is a 1970s thriller noir set in Mexico, and I'm just so in the mood for this right now. I picked it up February, could have been the tail end of January. I think it was February, and I've been super keen to get to this ever since I picked it up, but felt that the colours would go quite nicely. Then for the prompt to read a book with haunt in the title. So I have 3 options, 2 of which I have read before and 1 of which I haven't. So I am leaning more towards the one that I haven't, which is The Haunting of Bryn Wilder. I'll put the cover up on screen. I also have The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, which I absolutely loved. Would more than happily read it again, but the problem is if I read it again, I'm going to want to try and watch the Netflix series again. And I'm an absolute sissy, and I don't really want to set myself up for that. So there's that. I also have The Haunting of Aveline Jones, which I read last Halloween. Really enjoyed, would happily read it again, and is something that is a bit lighter. It's for children. So if I am utterly creeped out, then I may quickly switch and reread that instead. And then for Read a Slasher, it's a little bit tricky. Until you're in it, you don't necessarily know that it is a slasher. So I have the Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. I also have the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. So those are 2 solid options. I've been told, so the host of the readathon mentioned both of those, that they would be suitable for the prompt. So I do have both of those. I also have No Humans Involved by Kelly Armstrong. She used to be one of my favourite authors, maybe like 10-15 years ago. I haven't read anything by her in a long time. I picked this up in a charity bookshop, but it seems, so this is like some sort of reality TV show with 3 spiritualists trying to raise the ghost of Marilyn Monroe, but something goes wrong. So I can't help feel that there may be a slasher element in this, but I might end up getting partway through it and finding out that actually it's not. I also have The Beautiful and the Cursed. This is by Paige Morgan. I got this from a book subscription service last summer, and haven't managed to read it. I was a bit thrown because the cover suggests that it's more modern, but when I started it, it's set in Paris, I think in the 1800s, and there's nothing about her outfit that suggested that, so I kind of immediately put it down. It wasn't the vibe I was in, but I don't know if that was perhaps just a flashback. One thing I have to say about this book is they absolutely filled every inch of the page that they could, no chunky margins here. This might be one of the ones that I use for the prompt to read at dark or at night. I don't think it's going to be too creepy. I also have Waist Tide, which at the bottom says it's an eco-techno thriller, which just sounds so off-piste that I had to pick it up. This is by Chen Quifan. Apologies again if I mispronounced that. So on the back it says that Mimi is a waste girl. So she's a scavenger picking through towering heaps of hazardous electronic detritus. So this sounded, so the use of the word thriller, I kind of thought that this might kind of fill that gap between kind of creepy and spooky and just the ordinary books. So not yet sure exactly where I'll read this again. Picked it up for Asian Readathon and was just so over optimistic about how much I could read. at the tail end of May. I also have The Spook's Apprentice. So this is book 1 of a very long series. This was lent to me by my dad, so he's been reading the series for a really long time and thought that I would probably enjoy it. So I have, I think, 15 books in the series. And figured that this was a really good opportunity to start the series. Again, it's kind of got Halloween-y covers, and it's got hands coming up from the ground, which zombies really creep me out. If it is zombies, I'm not really sure. But yes, since it is more aimed, I think, like middle grade, I don't think it is going to be too bad. However, on the back it says, warning, do not read after dark, so probably won't be using this one for read a book in the dark. We are almost at the end now, so I have Starvacre, which I must admit I did pick up because of the cover. This is by Andrew Michael Hurley. I picked this up, I've already renewed it once. I didn't realise really what it was about. So on the front it just says genuinely brilliant and disturbing. So the bottom line of the blurb, I won't read the whole thing, it says Starvacre is a novel about the way in which grief splits the world in two and how in searching for hope we can so easily unearth horror. I've not really of late been in the mood for books that tackle grief. But it does remind me of The Monkey's Paw, which I did really enjoy. It's a moderately short book, and twice by 2 different people quoted on the back, it says best closing line of any novel we have read this year. So how can I not read it when 2 people have said best closing line? So again, I don't think it's going to take me too long to get to. The font is pretty chunky, and as I say, it's a moderately short book. So I have that. I also have Year One by Nora Roberts. I picked this up earlier in the year before I was away for 3 weeks, and then just didn't manage to pick it up since I've been back. But it is maxed out for the number of times I can renew it, so I really have to return this at the end of the month. Currently I'm on page 50, so barely any of the way into it. I may just start over. This is about a deadly pandemic. I picked it up when I saw it in the library because I really wanted to read a book where the pandemic actually ends, to then find out it's book 1 of 3, so the pandemic doesn't end. Talk about irony, but yes, it actually made our pandemic seem quite boring because like 2 weeks in they're on like the 18th president. So yeah, it is one that I really would like to get to. I've never read anything by Nora Roberts before, so would still like to finish it. I have The Science of Monsters by Matt Kaplan. So it's the tagline says why monsters came to be and what made them so terrifying. So this was in the non-fiction section. I'm not really sure what to expect, but I think it is just kind of going through like the history of different monsters. So it mentions like Medusa and sea serpents in the blurb, but I thought it would just be quite interesting because I do find mythical creatures quite fascinating, so keen to read. I have The Witch's Kiss by Catherine and Elizabeth Core. Again, this was one that I picked up from the library. So this sounds a bit typical YA. So she's a teenager, so she's a witch. And then she falls in love with the wrong guy. He's got like a cast on him. What will they do? So yeah, I think it's, large print, large margins. I don't think it's going to take long, but I think it might just be a nice palette cleanser if I've read too many kind of creepy things. And then last but not least, we have book 1 of the Magpie Society. So this is by Zoe Sugg and Amy McCulloch. And I understand, so this is like a sorority. A student found dead on the beach, a web of unanswered questions, someone poised to start again. So again, quite large font, quite large margins. I don't think it's going to take long, but again, due back to the library at the end of the month. So that concludes all of the books that I am hoping to read in the month of July, with only 22 days to go. Every year in the month of July I attempt to do 30 books in 30 days. I have never yet accomplished it. I don't know why I try to do it in the month of my birthday when I have so many plans. It's very ill thought through. But yes, if you have made it this far, thank you so much for joining. I'm now going to try and put these away and stack a ludicrous number of books for the thumbnail. But thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed. Please let me know what you are planning on reading below, or if you've read any of the books I mentioned, what you would recommend. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much. Bye!